we didn't have like normal school plays. Like, this is a theatrical interpretation of an Iranian poem about birds flying to meet God.
Hello, and welcome to the Roast of Your Teenage Self podcast. I am your host, your roast coming queen, a girl who didn't read Catcher in the Rye until college, actually, Alise Morales. And with us today, they're an actor, they're a comedian, they're a writer. You've seen them on Love Life and read about them in the New York Times. But before all of that, they were a graduate of the Urban School of San Francisco. It's Jes Tom.
Hi, Alise.
Hi. So the Urban School of San Francisco, you have to tell me everything about what that is about.
Okay, this is crazy. Let's just get right into it. I'm like, how do I even start? Well, it's crazy that it's called the Urban School of San Francisco, quote unquote, because it is a private high school that at the time I attended, it cost $30,000 a year to go to.
Wow, okay. Very
Yeah,
fancy.
very fancy. Not particularly urban. Um, and of it sort of like the San Francisco private high school circuit, urban was sort of like the weird one. It was like the
Okay.
alternative, like hippie one.
Okay, I was getting like the name gave me a new school vibe. Like, was
It is
that
sort of, yeah. It
okay?
was sort of new school. It was like we called all the teachers by their first names. Like, we didn't get grades, we got written evaluations. We like would like have a check-in every Friday where we like talked about our feelings. That was what it was like. Yeah.
Okay, that's extremely different from what my high school was like. So, did you thrive in this environment, or were you like, I hate this?
I feel like it's kind of a complicated
Yes.
question because it's like I had gone to public school before that,
Mhm.
and going to urban was my first like foray into private school. So I feel like I struggled socially very much. But at
Yeah.
the same time, I was actually just like talking to somebody about this, and they were like, you have this sort of sob story about like, oh, like I was in high school, I was queer, I was alone, I was so lonely, but like I was also like student body president. And I
I mean,
like
you can be it's lonely at the top though. It's like
it is, it is, it is, it's
heavy is the head that
lonely.
wears the crown.
It
Like
is, it is. Everybody else is all the way down there. It's
yeah,
hard.
and you're all the way up here and you're responsible for all of their little lives.
They'll never know. They'll never understand.
Was student body president a big deal job? Like, did you have a lot of responsibilities as a result of that?
Well, so one thing about my school too was that it was very sort of faux politically correct in this
Okay.
extremely San Francisco way. So like we didn't just have one student body president. We had like a boy president and a girl president. And I
Ah,
was like the girl president.
ah.
Um and we honestly, we gave the school announcements in the gym every Monday. That's probably
Okay.
how I like, yeah, came to be
We've
like
actually
this.
discussed being the person who gives the announcements as like a source of power. Taylor Guerin also gave the announcements. So
Yes, yes.
so
I
next
recall.
time if you ever see her again, you can say I also gave the announcements.
I will.
Did you get along with your co-president?
I did. He was okay, so his name was David. He was this extremely tall, handsome, like varsity soccer playing all-American white boy. So we always everybody used to say that they thought that I was the real president and David was my bodyguard, and I was like, that's exactly how it should be. That is
What kind
exactly what I want.
of
Actually, something kind of devious about me at that time. Yes, here's me
Okay.
and David Body. So this is me giving the announcements at all school meeting, literally like sitting on this white man. He's silent. I have the microphone. He doesn't talk. I talk.
Okay, so now I'm understanding why the other students got the impression that this man worked for you.
Yes. We did 1 year for or this year, senior year for Halloween. I was Lois Lane and he was Clark Kent as Superman, and we did this bit where I like a boy dressed as a ninja came out to attack me, and he like ripped his shirt open and picked me up and carried me away.
Oh, okay. Did the student body like ship you guys? Do you think?
Like romantically?
Yeah.
No, I mean, I was off the table. So
I wasn't sure if you, I was like, were you out at this time? What was the situation? Because I was like, maybe they were shipping you.
I was. So I was, yeah, my high school experience was very colored by me having been out as like some kind of gay or queer or
Mhm.
lesbian, all through high school.
So as early as like freshman year.
The first day, I decided because I knew I was a very early sort of bloomer in that specific way, very, very late in many other ways.
Yeah.
Um, But I already knew when I was, like, in 8th grade that I was gay, but I was like, "I'm not gonna, like, talk about it here," and then when I went to high school, I was like, "Well, I have this fresh new start." I specifically picked this weirdo school
Hmm.
where I was like, "I think it's gonna be okay for me to do this here," and I just decided I didn't wanna do that thing where I, like, came in and then came out and changed people's perception of me, so I just was like, "I'm just gonna be, like, gay in high
So
school."
you, so you, it was just that makes so much more sense that it like to just start out gay from day one is a lot
Mhm.
easier than having to like go through that process of coming out and having like a day where you're telling people and they're telling people and all of that stuff. It was just
I just didn't wanna deal with it. I just was like, "Let me just be this thing, and then people can decide if they like that or not." I don't
yeah.
wanna handle, like, everybody's feelings.
I do love being like, listen, I'm a queer teenager. I have enough on my plate. And I don't need to be dealing with all of this other nonsense.
I was lucky. I was very lucky, and I mean,
Yeah.
that comes from, like, being in San Francisco and, like,
Yes.
being
So
in these liberal
was
bubbles.
was your school like accepting in the way that you expected? Was there a queer community at your high school?
So there was, and, like, I had a lot of gay friends.
Mhm.
Um, Actually, I my whole little group of people, was queer teenagers. Our overlap was we did, theater, fencing, and poetry club, and at the intersection of those 3 clubs were all of my friends.
That's a beautiful gay Venn diagram. It's just
It
it's really that's great. Did you do those 3 activities or were you like drama club? Where did you let
I was deep in all 3 of those.
all
I
3?
was Yes, I did high school theater. I was captain of the fencing team my senior year. And actually I was poetry club president, which I forget a lot of the time. Um,
Oh my god. So okay, fencing, the only things I know about fencing are from uh Parent Trap. So
yeah, I was gonna ask, yeah.
into how did you get into fencing? How did fencing come into your life?
Well, we didn't have traditional PE
Mhm.
classically. So the way that PE worked at my school was that we had sort of like extracurricular classes that happened outside of school that you could sign up for.
Mhm.
And so I did fencing. I don't know. I like swords. I've always
Yeah.
sort of been like this.
I mean, if I had had the option to take fencing, I absolutely would have took fencing. Instead,
I was very bad
PE,
at it.
PE at my school, like I remember there was a month where they would just have us walk around the field every day. And we called it going for a walk. And like
Ah, I would have loved that. Did you gossip?
oh, we gossiped so much. And I think honestly, the practice of taking us for a walk had to end because drama was starting and people would leave the walk and like
Oh,
sneak away from the trail and make
oh
out
my
with each other.
God.
And like
Oh
it
my
actually
God.
it became it became too dangerous to take us for a walk every day. So we lost
No,
the
you
friend.
had too much freedom.
We were too free. I snuck off one time and went behind this shed instead of going on my walk. And I didn't even really do anything. And then the teacher caught me and he called me a smartass. And I was
Well, I mean,
scandalized.
yeah, no, he shouldn't have called you that, but you probably were one.
Oh, I absolutely was, and he was 100% right. But I was completely scandalized. I was like, he dares curse upon me.
He perceives me accurately?
He's telling me the truth about my actions. So what was your relationship to like your schoolwork and your teachers at that point? Because if you weren't, I imagine like if you're calling them by their first names and all that stuff, were they like buddies
They
or
kind of they kind of were buddies, and it's funny to me now that I am the age that I am, which I'm not going to name on the recording, that now I'm like, "Oh, those were, like, regular people teaching at a private school because it was
yeah,
private school, so you don't have to, like, jump through as many hoops as it would be to teach a public school."
which is so
Um,
interesting. Like you would
it's
think
wrong, it's wrong.
I mean, I'm
It's
glad
not
that
the way
our
it should
public school
be.
teachers are as highly trained as they are, but it's just odd to me
I
that
agree.
kind
No,
of
you can
anyone.
truly be any old person, I think, um, to whatever specific standards of the school. But like we had a science teacher who was probably like 27, and like super hot, and like everybody would think that she was like a hot senior girl when they came in. But she was a teacher, and she would like look at lolcats in the middle of class. That was the other thing about my school is that it was a tech forward school. So we all had laptops, we all had like smart boards and shit. We were doing like very
Ooh.
technologically advanced things.
I remember the advent of the smart board, like when they
Mhm.
kind of swept into my school and like half the teachers would have them and half the teachers would not have them and a quarter of the teachers who had them knew how they worked. So
Right. Exactly.
it would always get disattached from the pen or whatever, and then they would have to like
Like
reconfigure it. It was really too bad. We were like, you could just write on the chalkboard that's behind the smartboard, but
so we
no.
probably we probably were the sort of like tester type school where we were using all that technology
Mhm.
probably a little bit before
Yeah.
to see
So
if it worked.
did you learn like code at school? Or, like,
I didn't come away with almost anything useful, like, in a money-making sort of way. I learned to get in touch with my feelings.
great.
Um, I learned, I read, like, Chekhov, and I read, like, the classics, and I read, like,
Mhm.
Shakespeare, but I didn't actually learn any real technological anything. I learned how to, like, covertly send a text to my friends without
Yeah.
anyone noticing. Like, that's what I learned how to do.
Yeah, but I mean, honestly, teaching teenagers how to get in touch with their feelings is a very valuable thing to do. Like,
It
I
is.
do feel that more schools should be doing that.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. I mean, it was a whole sort of weird thing because we really liked to talk a lot of talk at my school, and
Mhm.
I don't think it like really structurally fit exactly what was going on. Like like we had a speaker come in one time, this person named Renata, who was literally a black genderqueer, like gender nonconforming trans person
Mhm.
who just came in to speak to us, like, about their experience of their life in, like, 2006 or something, like, a really
Yeah.
long time ago, before people were talking about stuff like this. So, on one hand, that was happening. On the
Mhm.
other hand, like, the boys were all calling each other fags on Facebook and stuff. So, it was like
Yeah, man. People were really doing that then,
mhm,
like, when we
mhm,
were growing up, really a lot.
mhm,
And it's like sometimes I think back on it and I'm like, I knew kids back in the day who wouldn't swear, but would still say that.
mhm.
Like, like crazy, crazy stuff.
Well, it's a word, it's a term.
Yeah.
It's a title.
Yeah. No, it's fun. But it's funny to say because it, whatever. Anyway, we don't need to get into that. But so, okay, as you are at the school and you're seeing, like a black trans person is coming to speak to you and all that stuff, how are you experiencing that with your own queerness, like, or your on your own like gender identity?
So, I was sort of deep in, early 2000s neoliberalism hole at that
Right.
time. So I remember watching Renata and being like, this is very cool. And like later they came and like spoke specifically at GSA where I also was. And I
Mhm.
was like, this is cool, but like I didn't ever think to, like, apply it to myself.
Mhm.
And then so now as an adult, I'm like, if I didn't get that, then, like, what were any of these kids getting out of that if
Yeah.
I didn't get it?
Yeah, it's so funny for you as a young kid to be standing so close to,
Mhm.
you're like so close yet so far away is the image that I'm getting. Like,
Exactly.
because you just weren't, I guess you just weren't ready for that information yet.
I wasn't ready. I kind of really thought that I had myself all figured out because I had sort of figured out this one thing about myself very early on. I kind of was
Mhm.
like, "And that's good enough." Like,
Yeah.
and we're done.
And we've closed the book on that.
Yes, we have no more growth to do. We have grown to the greatest extent. We know everything about ourselves, and we need not ask anymore.
And that's that.
Yeah,
Like, I
it
love
took
a 14
me
year old thinking that.
it it took me some years later to be like, "Ah, yes, like, actually, there's more."
Oh, it seems that there's another volume to this book.
I am still going. We are still alive.
So, were you dating at this time? Who are
Oh
you
my
dating
god.
at the time?
So, I'm only just now, as an adult, realizing what a weird experience it was to be queer at this school at this time because, like I said, I did have lots of queer friends, but we
Mhm.
did not date each other at all. We were it was very almost like ick, like, almost like
That's so
gr
interesting because in my little straight friend group, we were dating each other obsessively, creating
yeah,
horrible toxic scenarios amongst ourselves.
I wonder what that was about with us that we just weren't into doing that with each other, and then something interesting is so I always had these, like, intense, unrequited, like, suffering crushes
Mhm.
on these other girls outside my friend group, some of whom were sort of, like, ambiguously something because it was San
Yeah.
Francisco, you could be whatever, and then some of whom were, like, straight. Like, actually, this is kind of a sore subject for me right now because I just found out that, this person who I went to junior prom with,
Mhm.
and I confessed to them at some point that I had a crush on them, and they sort of
Mhm.
were like, "Ah, I don't swing that way, but, like, you're really cool, whatever, sorry."
Mhm.
I just found out, like, a couple weeks ago that now they're a non-binary trans person, and I'm like, "That's great, that's great, I'm so happy for you." But I'm like, "Why did I have to feel weird?" Like,
Yeah.
I have
But
to
you
feel
also you
weird.
hurt my feelings.
Yeah, I felt
But
weird 15 years ago.
that's you watching that, like, watching that one or that person speak and being like, not ready to accept the information.
You're right,
You
alright,
were
fine.
Renata. You
That's a great perspective, actually. That's actually a really, really smart read on this situation,
Yeah,
and
I've
it
been recording a
actually
lot of episodes of the podcast lately, so
that's very insightful, Elise, thank you for that. I'm gonna consider that on my own time later. I'm gonna try to let go of just the pure bitterness that I feel about this and try to, like, have empathy for the people around me. Everybody's journey
No, but I
is
would be
valid.
extremely pissed off too. I mean, I have attachments to people from high school that it's like it's it's wrong. Like I'm sick for still
Mm.
looking at their page. Like,
Every so often, I come around again to see where everybody's at, and it's interesting because almost everybody who was, like, a girl in high school is some total other type of thing now in, like, lots of different ways. Like, sometimes it's that they were super queer and weird in high school, and now they're really normal. Um,
mhm.
the the guys are exactly the same, but just worse.
They have not progressed. Well, they've
No,
progressed, but in a in a different way.
no, and, like, I had one friend who was a trans girl in high school, um, and as far as I know, none of the people who I knew to be "boys," quote, unquote, in high school have, like, transitioned or, like, changed their gender in any sort of way. Like, none of them other than, like, my one friend.
That's so interesting. I wonder, like, so what were you able to like decide to go to this school? Like, did you choose it?
I did. So, What happened was I was an extremely precocious and advanced teenager. Um,
No. I can't see
very
that
annoying,
at all.
very know-it-all. And so at my public middle school, the teachers were sort of like, okay, Jess is sort of like really a big fish in a small pond here. And like maybe you, my mom, should think about like looking at private schools. And I actually had really, really wanted to go to like the very prestigious, very conservative private school.
Oof. What
I don't know
what was
why.
that one called? Do you remember?
It was called, these names are so stupid. It was called University High School. The big
I
three, okay,
love
just wait. The big
I
three,
sorry, I was just gonna say I love fancy people's high school names because it's absurd.
they're insane. The big three private high schools in San Francisco are the Urban School, University High School, and Lick Wilmerding.
No.
Yes, Lick Wilmerding.
What? What is Lick? What is Lick Wilmerding's like reputation? I'm sorry, that's really fucked up, and I actually feel really bad for the kids that go there.
You feel bad for Mr. Lick and Mr. Wilmerding who got together to start this school.
Oh, you know what? I'm sorry, but if you and your buddy want to start a school and your names are Lick and Wilmerding, you're like, we can't name it after ourselves. Like,
No, be a little bit creative. Someone
how,
has a grandma, someone has a different name.
right? Let's take a step back and look at yourselves. You can't name a school for children Lick Wilmerding. Okay, what was of the three, if like the urban school is the weirdo one and the university is the conservative one, what is like Wilmerding Hufflepuff? It's just like forget everybody.
It is Hufflepuff, actually. I think their colors were actually yellow and black.
That's insane.
It is, I think that it's kind of the sleeper of the three. Like, I think it's the real weirdo school. At Lick, you major in an art, like you can major in like metalwork or like jewelry making or
Okay.
something like that. I actually kind of wish I had done that instead.
Well, yeah, and then I mean, for just comedic purposes, you could be like, my high school was Lick Wilmerding.
I would never get past just that fact, just that base fact.
Yeah, you would get on stage, you would say that, you would get a 15-minute standing ovation.
And I'd drop the mic, I walk off.
and every article would be like, this year is Jes Tom's year.
It's like Jes Tom, Lick Wilmerding. Like, that's my credit.
Exactly.
They attended Lick Wilmerding High School.
I mean, that is truly how I bring everyone in on this podcast, but
It's, yes.
oh my
Imagine
God.
having to lead with that today. My God.
I mean, I'm glad that we got here when we did. So, okay, let's talk about your theater career because that's just an important part of every episode.
Absolutely. Absolutely it is.
What plays did you do? What were the big Jes Tom performances?
So, typical of my weird alternative school, we didn't have like normal school plays. So like I have almost no clout with like high school theater kids because we didn't do like Grease or like I don't know, Miss Saigon or whatever, like plays that people heard of. We were doing like this is like this is a theatrical interpretation of an Iranian poem about birds flying to meet God across the country. Like that was what we were doing. Or like this is the spoken word.
I think we have some photos that we put together of your theater program that illustrate this super well. So for our audio listeners, it appears there's a spotlight on a body on the ground. And
yes.
And Jes is standing next to it giving a news report.
Yes. So this is Iphigenia 2.0 by Charles Mee. It is a modern day adaptation of Iphigenia at Aulis, which we set during the Iraq War, classically, as every play from like 2004 to 2008 was set in the Iraq War.
Okay.
something that I, as a teenager, really understood,
Mhm.
and
And should be speaking on.
yes,
Because
should
you actually
absolutely be
teenagers
making a
need to speak
statement.
out. I
I
take
agree. No,
that
I do agree on that.
back.
Um, but I am playing. So the thing about Charles Mee's plays is that
Mhm.
he straight up is like, look, adapt this play, change it, fix it, move it around, mix it up. So we actually added three characters
Okay.
to this play. We added the Fates from Greek mythology, and I am Atropos, the string cutting fate, the death fate.
Ooh,
Yeah.
that's
So
exciting.
at this point in the play, Iphigenia has sacrificed herself, and I am making uh some sort of speech about it that I had written myself.
Okay.
um the girl on the ground here is Clytemnestra, Iphigenia's mom. The sort of the like hot mommy of Greek mythology. I also had a massive crush on this exact girl who was playing this role.
So I just love having a play that's written by a famous playwright that also just has like a couple speeches written by like high school
Yeah, on the Iraq War.
about the
Yeah,
Iraq
on
War.
the metaphor of the Iraq War.
So, was this was an unrequited crush on this girl or requited?
It was unrequited. I actually, in this exact play, had a total like mental breakdown after casting because we gender swapped a few of the roles, and I
Mhm,
desperately wanted to play Achilles, who gets like a dance scene with her.
mhm.
And at the time, I really, really thought I just really wanted to play that role. And now, as an adult, I'm like, no, I was in love with that girl, number one. And number two, I wanted to play a young man.
Yeah.
That's what I.
Hmm. Hmm. There are clues. It's interesting to find the clues along the way.
Mhm. Mhm.
But who among us hasn't had a breakdown after casting? You know?
That's what casting is for. Just to like ruin the mental health of like 10 to 20 teenagers.
Absolutely. I mean, I remember not getting a part I wanted and you can't take it with you and being furious at the
Did you
injustice
deserve
I
it?
saw. I was one of the strongest people in the program, and I think that there, you know what, a choice was made, and you're right. Some people do, you know, it's their senior year, I guess, or whatever. I don't know.
Some people just can't see what's obviously in front of them.
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's politics. There's obviously politics that goes into these things, and someone got the part
This
that I
is
wanted. So,
this is a later casting injustice. This was senior year college, but I was in a horrible production of A Midsummer Night's Dream, the second horrible production of A Midsummer Night's Dream I've ever done,
oh, I
and
love.
I was not cast as Puck, and I was like, "Are you an idiot? Like, are you literally stupid? Like, look at me. Like,
Yes.
I'm the Puck. I am the Puck here."
That that is the most that feeling, especially when you're like going out for plays, is so it's I don't even get to that level of outrage going out for stuff that I go out for now as I did like seeing the cast list and feeling overlooked for a part in like the school fall production of
Of course
such
not.
and such.
Well, because a play is such a commitment. It's a
Mhm.
lifestyle. It is a lifetime. An entire lifetime occurs within one production of a play.
Yes, and so much you fall in and out of love,
Oh,
like,
God.
friendships are made and broken,
Absolutely.
things get
Tensions run
sexy,
high. Things
sometimes
did not
people
get
start
sexy for
drinking.
me, but I
Things got see, I never, like okay, my senior year, I was in a love triangle in the drama department that caused a bit of
ugh,
a friction,
ugh.
but one of those people is very scary now, in the
Ooh.
that was in the triangle, and I really should have just picked the other one. But we're leaving that in the past.
I was more of like a big deep, dark, secret crush type.
Mm-hmm.
Like a dark, like make a whole playlist on a CD, put it in your student mailbox, and never speak of it again.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes I like will think back in nostalgia to the unrequited crushes of my past at just like and just marvel at my own depth of feeling. Like
Hmm. I'm
I
like,
would
I don't feel anything like that anymore.
I would love a boy with my whole body. Like I would just be like and someone who I like when we're talking early middle school and stuff, like it would be like boys I did not talk to and I
Oh,
would
absolutely.
just be in love with them. In love.
I mean, that girl on the floor, Clytemnestra, I don't know anything about her. I don't know anything about her. Like, I mean, I definitely spent a lot of time with her doing that play, but like, we weren't really like friends or anything. We didn't like hang out. I
Yeah,
did not know her.
but that's I feel like that's why those crushes get that way because it's so much a person that you like create in your head and there's so much you're not really bringing in any past experiences. You're
Hmm.
just bringing in like stuff you know from movies and TV.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then for me, there was this whole sort of speculative aspect of like, would this person even ever be interested in me or ever be interested in somebody like me?
Yes.
Um, and what is funny is that actually a lot of them might have been, but I was too like afraid. And
Yeah.
yeah.
And it's interesting cuz like that I even as like a straight like middle schooler and stuff, it's I my fear kept me from like admitting my crushes on so many people where it's like, of course that boy also wanted to kiss you.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Mm-hmm.
he is a 13-year-old boy. If you offer to kiss him, he's gonna kiss you. Like
Exactly, exactly. But then it's hard because it's like on the other hand, then I had that experience of literally telling that person I had a
yeah.
crush on them and them being like, I am not into you for this specific reason. And now that's not true anymore. So
Yeah. Well, yes.
who
You
knows?
had an added you had an added danger that
Ugh, it was just embarrassing. That
I love being like, it was just embarrassing.
well, that whole experience was so humiliating. Me and this person had gone, that was my friend, and we did hang
Mhm.
out. And again, that person like asked me to prom junior year, and
Yeah,
then
so
like
I feel
weirdly,
like that's a little but were they
well,
like, it was friends prom supposedly?
they asked me to prom and then kind of didn't hang out with me all night, and I felt some type of way about that. And because I sort of was like, why would you even do this if you didn't want to even like hang out with me? Um, and
People
then
are
years
doing that
later,
to
I
their
was
prom
like, oh,
dates.
like
I hear this story come
what?
up on the roast. If any teenagers are listening, don't take someone to prom if you don't want to hang out with them when you get there. Just take
No,
somebody else.
prom is a commitment.
Yeah, if you take
Prom
someone
is a
to
time
prom,
honored tradition.
if you take someone to prom, you got to hang out with them.
Follow through, follow through.
There are no teenagers who listen to this podcast and I'm always giving them advice saying like for the teens who listen like I do not know of any but
They're like doing drugs and kissing somewhere
yeah
else.
like
Like-
these people seem old and weird. All
Mom,
right.
turn that off, Mom.
Let's look through some of the photos that you sent because these are really beautiful. Um okay, let's
So
look
this is
because
another play.
this is another play. Okay, for those who are listening, we have two black and white, like very artsy photos. Jess is wearing a full suit and some heels.
Hmm.
And then you've also got a friend with you in one of the photos. So were these like the promotional images for the play?
They were. When you go to alternative San Francisco high school, this is the sort of promotional images that get put up for the school play. No text, no nothing, just
Oh,
these
so
high-contrast black and white photos.
these didn't have other text on them when they were put up?
Maybe they did. Maybe
Okay,
they
I
did
was like,
eventually,
wait.
but this was an adaptation of the Jack Nicholson movie Chinatown, um,
Oh.
called Chinatown 415, because it took place in San Francisco in the future and was about lesbians. Um, um,
That rocks.
thank you. But like I said, it has
Fucking
no
awesome.
clout among high school theater people. I did play the Jack Nicholson role, and
Wow.
um, yeah, this was something that was actually very, very cool about my school, was that we didn't do traditional auditions. Like, to be in a play, you were in a class and then they
Mhm.
cast out of the class, so you were definitely in it. And they also sort of picked the play based on who was in the class. And
Cool.
so senior year, they actually sort of were like, we're gonna put Jess in the lead role, so we're gonna pick this play that, like, literally for some reason in the adaptation was a Chinese American lesbian Jack Nicholson, and they were like, only Jess can play this role.
It really was created for you to assume the role.
It was. I was very lucky to be able to do that. And then here, this also is my friend Kate, who played the Faye Dunaway role.
Wow.
Um,
Okay, so I mean, I have to imagine that you took this very seriously.
oh my God, it was so serious and so intense. Um, I was, I don't know, like, this was, I got a kiss in this one. Yeah,
Whoa.
me and Kate
Whoa.
in the picture, we had a little
You
kiss.
guys kissed. I mean,
Yeah,
that's huge. I mean, for real, good on your school though, because I mean, my high school would have never come anywhere close. Oh my God, my public Virginia, there's no way.
we were crazy. Like, actually, in the conversation where we were talking about that we were going to do the kiss, it was our theater teacher, Frances, and one of my other mentors, Ellen Sebastian Chang, who is like a Bay Area theater person. She's
Mhm.
this like super weird, like cool Black woman. And she and Frances were old time friends, and she was the one who actually adapted the play. Um, so they were talking to us and they were like, okay, and then at this point, you're gonna have to do a kiss. And people make a big deal out of this, but it's not a big deal. And Ellen goes and grabs Frances, the teacher, and just makes out with her
Oh my
in front
God.
of all of us. It's like 6 p.m. on a Wednesday or something after rehearsal.
And you're just like,
Um,
oh.
yeah. Yeah. So like shit like that was happening. All kinds of things can happen at private school. There are no rules. It's anarchy.
You know what? That has been my understanding of private schools. So it's good to have that confirmed. Do you remember? This is a question I love to ask. Do you remember any of the big rumors, scandals, happenings of your school? Big troubles, etc.
Um, a huge scandal at my school was when one year somebody brought a Christmas tree and set it up in the old library, which was where the seniors hung out. And it was a pretty secular Christmas tree. Like, it was just a tree with like a string of pink lights on it.
Mhm.
But people flipped out because it was not politically
Mhm.
correct to put up a Christmas tree. And we
And you
we
were
had
the
a lot
PC
of
school.
We were the PC school, yeah, and we had a lot of Jewish students who were like, "We don't like this." I don't even know if it was the students who started it. I actually think it was a faculty member who started
Mhm.
it. And then people being like, "Well, no, like, we don't want to put up menorah or whatever because that's like a real religious holiday, and it's like not the same as Christmas, which is so commercialized, and like Christmas symbols, which are so commercialized. We don't actually like. We do not like this,
Mhm.
and we don't want to like try to rectify it in any sort of way." And they ended up having to move the Christmas tree into like the dean's office.
I love the dean just having a private Christmas tree for
Yeah, and if you wanted to see the Christmas tree, you had to go into the dean's office.
Do you remember like where you stood on the issue?
I
where you
think I
grew
thought it
up.
wasn't a big deal and everybody was making a really big deal out of it. And I think that's still how I feel. I mean, I
Yeah.
get it. Like as an adult, I'm like, yes, I do understand being really annoyed at being like having to be around all this like Christmas shit all the time. But like it was kind of a cute gesture that somebody did that was like nice for the school. And like it was a string of ping lights, you know, it
Yeah.
wasn't like super
Wasn't
Christmassy.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it is the perfect thing though for like young liberal kids in like early 2000s to like recognize and rail against as well. Like once the
Yes.
teacher brought it up, it's like I feel like it teenagers have such a like black and white understanding of like what's supposed to be happening. So I feel like it is a very like high school thing to be like, we're the PC school. That's not PC. Get the tree
Hmm.
out. That's like we have to be against the tree when it's like, well, let's actually think about it. Maybe the tree is just kind of nice.
Right. I just thought it wasn't a big deal. But we
Yeah.
were always fighting about stuff. Like we had whole online forums, which was where all these conversations would go down.
Oh
Hmm.
shit. So I
Hmm.
guess that's part of being the tech school.
Yeah, yeah. So we had a lot of intense like internet arguments.
I would this go on like AIM or like legitimate like forums?
We had our own, I don't know what you would even call this, but we had
Mhm.
our own like server thing that we were all on just for the school.
And you could start drama there?
Absolutely, absolutely. That was what it was for.
Okay. So it like wasn't like it wasn't monitored by like the teachers or anything? Like
It was monitored by the teachers and like big things actually would really go down at this school. Like the Christmas tree example is sort of absurdist.
mhm.
There are a lot of other like really intense, like, you know, having like uh intense argument about race
Yeah,
at the
yeah, yeah.
school and like racism that like led to like real material consequences and like people being really hurt and like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
people really revealing themselves in this way. The Christmas tree is like, I
Christmas tree
think
is
that's
like
just,
fun one to talk about on podcast.
yeah.
The other one is like there's a lot to unpack actually with this other
Hmm.
situation. So, okay, you could like how I'm so obsessed with the server now. Like what type of drama could you call people out by name on the server? Or was it more like a private message you would send someone to be like, I see that what you're the fuck you're up to?
Um, it was like my friend, you know, one of my friends one time performed a spoken word poem for the feminist club at all school
Mhm.
meeting, and then boys would get on and be like, I felt really misunderstood by that feminist poem. Like it was stuff like that.
Oh, damn. So is
Yeah.
that kind of drama. Okay. Okay.
It was, you
I
know,
hated the poem.
things got kind of dark sometimes. Like ultimately what ended up happening, because these huge sort of dramas would come out of like the students of color club having an all school meeting or the feminist club having an all school meeting. And really honestly, like it's not that they were starting drama, it's that they were being real about like their experiences in
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
environment. But then within the time that I was at the school, they stopped allowing those clubs to have that kind of meeting.
Wow. So you when you were there, a club like GSA or like a Students of Color club could run the all school meeting or call one,
Yeah, yeah.
and they
Um,
stopped allowing that.
they changed it so that it was like a club could host like an outside speaker coming in, but the students themselves could no longer get up and like air grievances basically in front of the whole school.
Wow. Okay. That's so interesting. One, do you think like was there any merit to that decision or is it just them being like we don't want the kids to talk no more?
I kind of think it was a bitch move.
Okay. Yeah. I
Yeah.
was like that's my initial impression but I'm like I wonder like maybe the meetings are getting crazy. I don't know.
I think it was a bitch move, and I think that it was people just like ultimately, honestly, it was changing the environment so that like the white boys at school felt more comfortable.
Yeah, so that they couldn't be like called to account at this like meeting at school or whatever.
Right.
Me
Yeah.
I don't want to hear a poem that made me feel bad.
No, we did a lot of cosmetic shit like that. Like I remember there was one year that one of the boys running for co-president was like, I'm the homie's choice. Like that's what his poster said, the homie's choice. And they made him take that down because it wasn't okay for him to like say homies.
Yeah, I mean, it's high school is an interesting time, which I guess is the point of this podcast.
In conclusion,
In
high school is an
conclusion,
interesting time.
we actually do have more photos to look at for you. So that is not the conclusion. I wanted to talk about this one because both Claudia, our producer, and I thought this was a very cute little film strip. So who are we looking at here?
Okay, so I did have a girlfriend at the
Yes.
very, very end of senior year of high school.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yes, this was my first girlfriend ever. Um, we this was sort of funny too because once we got together, people kind of treated it like it was a secret when it wasn't really a secret.
You're like, no, we took a bunch of photos in this photo booth.
Yeah, yeah. Like
That's interesting. So other people just assumed that your relationship wasn't public just because it was queer?
sort of, yeah. And I didn't know this at the time, but later on I learned that there was like actually a lot of secret queer shit happening at this school that
Interesting.
I was not privy to and I was not like allowed into really because like I was not a secret. I was very out
Oh,
and
that's
big.
so interesting. So like they kind of didn't want to they didn't let you into their like closet club kind of.
I mean, I don't know. I haven't heard this from
Yeah.
anyone, but my emotional projection is that I was excluded from some of this like secret queer drama and like specifically like secret queer girl drama
Yeah.
because I like it just wouldn't have been a secret with me.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense. If it's like if they feel like it's like, well, this other person is like they might compromise the secret with their very
Hmm.
presence.
Hmm. I mean, and I wouldn't have had it be a secret. I mean, this was not a
Mhm.
secret, me and my
Yeah.
girlfriend at that time.
So, how long did you two date?
We dated a year, from the end of senior year high school through most of first year of college, which was not a good idea. We should not have done that. We should have broken up right when high school ended. Maybe at
Mhm.
the end of the summer. Um, yeah, had a nice little
Yeah.
summer together, end it when it was nice, and then that's it.
It's hard not to make that mistake.
These matters of the heart, it's complicated.
You think how far apart were you in like college?
Like geographically.
Yeah, distance.
Yeah, I went to Smith in Massachusetts and she went to NYU.
Okay,
Um,
so it's like not it's not close but not far.
yeah, we would see each other a couple times a month. I would take the bus to New York. And then actually she eventually ended up transferring to Smith after we had broken up.
Oh, hi.
Yeah, yeah, in a kind of classique lesbian move.
Yeah. So what how did your courtship begin? Was it like your pursuit of her?
So we were classic close female friends. Um
Mhm.
and it was just this thing where like kind of for years we had a very close friendship, which I wonder what your take on this
Mhm.
is, Elise, because in my experience, a lot of like straight women, and
Mhm.
especially like straight white women, have this very kind of gray relationship with each other.
Yes.
Like
There's
where they're
like
like always like touching each other's faces and like kissing and being like, I want to marry you, I love you. Like.
yeah, and well also when I was growing up, I felt like girls making out with each other platonically, quote unquote, was
Mm-hmm.
having a major moment in the culture
It
and
was.
in the classroom.
Biculture was born in 2007. That all bisexuals can be traced down to the year 2007.
Well, we've talked about this. Actually, they can be traced to the episode of the OC where Misha Barton and Olivia
Of
Wilde kiss.
course, of
That
course.
is actually the spark when bisexuality
When all bisexuality,
was
that
created.
is the big bang of bisexuality.
It was. But I just remember there was like a lot of girls who were best friends who would make out at lunch at our school, and they were friends, but they would make out at lunch, and then these two twins did it, and the whole
Ew, no.
yeah, and then the trend ended. The trend ended right in its tracks. Everyone was
And
like,
then the meme was over. It
yeah,
had
and
been
then it was
done.
just like, you know what? It went really far, and we need to pull back.
Wow, that's a good scandal.
That was a good scandal. And it wasn't, I don't even remember it being that scandalous. I just remember everyone being like, that was really weird. And like, we really can't let that happen again. And we need to simmer down at lunch
We
collectively.
need to bring homophobia back.
Yeah. You know what? We opened up, things got too liberal and some crazy
It's too
shit.
progressive. This is what happens. This is what happens.
This is exactly what George Bush is saying on the TV.
You
let
open
ladies
that
kiss at
door.
lunch, and now we've got incestuous relationships.
Full incest.
Listen, all I'm saying is that's what happened at my school. So, so I think we have one more photo that we chose. That's oh, we've got two. Okay, is this a school dance that we are looking at here?
This is junior prom. This is not my date. But this is also somebody who came out as queer later on in adulthood. Yeah, I just think this is such a funny example of like I'm like wearing Doc Martens at prom.
Yes.
I'm wearing this like black lace vintage dress.
And your friend has a very Betsy Johnson, like the bright pink.
Yes, yes. The sort of Betsy Johnson Hot Topic.
Yes. Both of you are
Yes.
serving a Betsy Johnson Hot Topic situation here.
We're on a boat also.
Oh, wow. You had to dance on a boat. That's fun.
Did. We had a boat prom. Yeah, and this is me hanging out with someone who was not my date because my date didn't hang out with me that much that night.
Which again, to the teens who aren't listening, don't do that.
Don't do this.
Hang out with your date. Okay, the picture
Make it so that
sorry, you finish your thought.
Make it so that 15 years later, so your date uses a picture of you guys together on a podcast.
Exactly. Don't put yourself in this position where you're nowhere to be found on the podcast.
You want to be in this podcast, trust.
Okay, there is a picture of you that I love. This picture is so cute to me because it has such Myspace energy to me. Was this a user photo?
It was. Well, this was one of my first ever Facebook photos, which I got Facebook like sophomore year high school. I feel like this is just such a like classique, like what I looked like at that time.
Yes. And I was always like, this was a classic way that I would structure my photos too, where like you're not in the center, you're looking off to the side.
Mm-hmm.
Like the only thing you're not doing is kind of like the mouth to the side, the little like.
I took a lot of, I wish I could find these because I don't know where they could be, but there are so many photos, those like downward angle.
Oh yeah.
But I'm like inside the shower kind of photos.
I took so many, from that angle. And then I would also use the flash. So it would just be like kind of my eyes.
Yes.
And then I would turn the saturation up super high too on my photos and make the colors really bright.
And it was a digital camera at that time, so you were just shooting. You were just shooting and hoping. You had no idea what that picture looked like.
Oh, I still will do this from time to time, but I would take so many pictures on the digital camera and like trying to get the flash right in the mirror and like all of that. All of
Your
that.
mom is like, why have you been in the bathroom for 25 minutes?
Yes. And I'm just like, just leave me alone. I'm trying to get this picture.
Shut up. Shut up.
This is private. Just like trying to explain to my parents what MySpace is.
Oh, God. MySpace was such a stressor at that time. Like, yeah.
Is there
Like,
anything more cruel than the top 8 system as it was devised?
absolutely not. Absolutely not. It is a hurtful feature.
That was horrible. Yeah, list publicly your friends in order of how
In
much
order, in descending order.
Yeah, and if you make a new friend, sorry, one's gotta go.
I remember like the trend of like when your friends would write like a big paragraph about you that you would put on MySpace. And my friends weren't into stuff like that, and so I never had anything like that.
The like little like online like digital markers of friendship were so huge. Like I've talked about this on the podcast before, but me and my friends would, if you said something really funny on AIM, like LOL, they would copy and paste it into their AIM profile.
Yes.
And
Or like
as
a quotes.
And as a budding comedian, I was trying to get in people's profiles, man. I was like putting in work on AIM trying to make my friends laugh so I'd get in their profile.
And did you?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
I used to have for years, actually, because eventually Facebook changed enough that I didn't even remember these sections existed, but there was like a quote section on Facebook.
Yes.
And mine was totally full of stuff. Actually, a quote from that young science teacher that I talked about before, where she was like, Gila monsters can reproduce completely without, like, it was like, 2 female Gila monsters can reproduce with each other. So in conclusion, we don't need men. I'm not sexist. I'm just a scientist. And I had that quote for years on my face.
I remember like, yeah, Facebook used to have, you could do notes on Facebook. And I remember I used to write reviews of the show Secret Life of the American Teenager on Facebook notes, and people would read them. And it was like this early comedy writing of mine because I thought that show was very dumb. And all of them are gone now, and that's probably good. So
that archive is gone.
Yeah, Facebook removed the notes feature, and I think that's probably for the best. All right, Jess, I feel like we have come to the end here, but before I let you go, I have to ask you what we ask every guest on the podcast, which is, if you could talk to teen Jess today, what would you tell them?
If I could talk to teen Jess today with all of my wisdom I have now, I would be like, dude, chill out. There will come a time when you will sleep with many brown-haired white girls. You'll do it so much that you're going to be like, I actually don't really want to do that much anymore. And then someday everyone is going to go goo goo gaga over the vice president's stepdaughter, who's a brown-haired white girl, and you're going to go, actually, I don't even need to look at this person, and you're going to feel proud about that.
I've actually moved beyond Ella Emhoff.
I wish I could show teen Jess a picture of Ella Emhoff and be like, someday you will not have a crush on this girl.
Yeah, someday this will mean nothing to you.
You'll look at this and you will feel nothing.
Oh, God. Ella's a friend of the pod. You know, we would love to have you, Ella. I know you just booked a major contract.
We know you were a teenager once.
We know that
you can't hide it.
Ella was a teenager once. All right, Jess, it was so great having you on the pod. Always a delight. A friend of the show from its live show days. And to everyone listening at home, this has been the Roast of Your Teenage Self podcast.